Winston is a friendly red engine that lives on the island of Sodor. He is mixed traffic, meaning he can pull both trucks and coaches quite easily. Now it's been some time since their Topham Hatt had retired Edward the Blue Engine after his act of bravery in saving Wellsworth. Day after day, Edward would watch as the other engines would leave for work, and Edward occasionally felt left out. But Winston was always there whenever he wasn't working to tell Edward the news. This made Edward feel a little bit better. One day, after Winston finished his work, he went to visit Edward as usual. But when he got to the sheds, he saw something that made him grind to a halt. He saw the bigger engines all making fun of Edward, and Edward did not look happy. They said,
"The driver won't choose you again. He wants big, strong engines like us."
Eagle could tell by Edward's face that what the big engines said hurt him deeply, because deep down, Edward knew they were right. He hadn't been out for a long time, and he began to feel left out. Eagle was so disgusted by this, he left without saying a word. Eagle decided to talk to the Wellsworth and Sudbury tank engines about what he saw. "We are getting greatly outnumbered," said Adam. "I never liked those big engines, especially that 98462. His aura is dark." "Eagle," whispered Lily, "something must be done before this all gets too out of hand." They all agreed that something must be done, but none knew what. At last, Eagle whispered something to the other engines. "I can do that," he said. And hurried away. Next morning, Eagle arrived at the sheds a little earlier than usual, before the driver and fireman had a chance to arrive. A few moments later, he whispered to his driver and fireman, "Now driver, now fireman." Presently, a driver and fireman appeared to start work. The driver looked at Edward, and dare I mention what he said? I think you can guess.
"What's the matter? Are you feeling sad? Would you like to come out today? And Edward said, "Oh yes, please." So the fireman lit the fire and made a nice lot of steam. Then the driver pulled the lever and Edward puffed away. The other engines were very cross at being left behind.
few moments after Edward had left, the real driver and fireman came along to start work, and Eagle told them just how badly the other engines had been treating Edward. The driver and fireman agreed with him and told the other engines just what bad engines they were and took Winston out instead. As Winston left the sheds, he could feel the glare from all the big engines. Thanks to Winston, Edward had the best day out in a long time. All the children ran to wave as he went by, and he met old friends at all the stations. Edward worked hard all day. The coaches thought he was very kind, and the driver was very impressed. I can't believe it! 98462 almost shrieked in the sheds that evening. They let that bucket of bolts Edward out today! I know, agreed a visiting green engine. I haven't been here very long, but I can tell that Edward is an engine with very little power. You got that right, snapped 98462. Ever since you got here, he's been nothing but a waste of space. Fat Hat should really send him off to a museum, or even better, scrap. Gordon, despite all his arrogance, knew right from wrong, and he knew that 98462 was no more than just a rude engine. Edward's design, he began, was useful at one point in time, but then modernization came, and there became less use for engines of his class, and therefore needed bigger, tender engines like us. Though he may be smaller than us, that does not make him any less useful in any way. Although, of course, his importance will never equal close to mine. I pull the express. 98462, 87546, and the visiting green engine all began to argue with Gordon. Their arguing was soon interrupted by Eagle. Ah, talking about Edward, I see. Yes, said Gordon nervously. I just finished telling them how Edward is a really useful fellow and deserves our respect. Good, said Winston. Well, I suggest it be your best interest to keep it that way. Oh, and speak of the engine, I hear Edward might be going out again tomorrow. What do you think of that? 98462, 87546, and the visiting green engine were all about to protest when Edward came puffing back into the sheds, tired but happy.
And he told the other engines in the shed that night, I'm going out again tomorrow. What do you think of that? But he didn't hear what they thought, for he was so tired and happy that he fell asleep at once.
Don't worry, little Edward. I'll soon show you how important I am when I pull the express tomorrow.